I'm Jeff from S3 Studios, and so novice writers have a problem with generating ideas and organizing these ideas. Take this guy Jimmy here, for example. He's creating a story, and he has some character outlines, some storyline tidbits, but all of this stuff is just kind of scattered everywhere, and this information isn't really organized. So we're going to look at a bit of his story and see if we can help. So he has an idea for a country that he made. It's a floating piece of land, but it's missing some names and some other specific information that he just doesn't have. And he's not really sure where to go for it. He's kind of experiencing a writer's block. So what we're going to do is now switch to his character types. He knows that he wants to have some elves in his story, and he wants to have some humans as well. But he also needs some kind of bad guy character, and he doesn't really have any ideas for this. The only thing that he thinks he wants to have is a big, ugly creature. That's about all that he has in his idea for his bad guy. So he also has a main character, and he really relates to the main character in his story. So what he decided to do was model the character after himself. He wants to wear some heavy armor and have a sword as his weapon of choice. And since he, relates to this character really well, he feels like that he's got a pretty good grip on what he should look like. So another thing that he's come up with is a big battle scene. And he decided any good story worth telling has a dragon in it. And a dragon that you find in some deep, dark cave. And so he decided to have a dragon. And of course, since he's modeling, the character after himself, he has no problem beating this big, ferocious dragon. So Jimmy has a lot of good ideas, but a lot of them lack details, and they're not really organized. They're scattered everywhere. And this is the main problem that Jimmy and other writers like Jimmy have. So what does Jimmy do now? I mean, where does he turn for help? He obviously needs some kind of help. Well, if only we had some kind of site that would help these novice writers put together the idea generation and organization. Well, Jimmy's in luck, and so are other writers, because there is such a site, and it is Storyfellows. Storyfellows is a social network for writers that allows them to come together and share and collaborate on stories. So what we decided to do was we found that the writing process is broken down into 3 different stages: the pre-writing stage, the writing stage, and the review. The original Storyfellows site was developed, and it didn't encompass the pre-writing stage. It was actually developed to try and connect writers to editors and to try and decrease the amount of time that would take to create a complete written work. So this is William, a mind mapping application for Storyfellows. William is our attempt to try and solve a few problems when it comes to novice writers and the Storyfellows site. In terms of the site, we found that the lack of the pre-writing stage was a pretty big problem. So William's going to add that pre-writing stage to the Storyfellows site and be available for all writers. So, as we said, the users have a hard time organizing ideas. William allows these users to connect ideas that are related. And with these connections, it allows users to follow this flow of information in a logical way. And not only that, but William will allow the users to be able to place these ideas anywhere that they feel makes sense to them. So another problem that the William tries to solve is idea generation. So as we said, a lot of users have a problem generating ideas, and we wanted them to be able to generate ideas. A lot of people go to friends, and so that's what William also tries to do. But we want Storyfellows to be a place where all users can utilize and enjoy the tools that are available to them. William obviously will be more of a help for novice writers, but that doesn't mean that excludes the expert writers either. It'll be a place where both can use it and be beneficial. So Jimmy now then goes to the Storyfellows site to try this out, and he logs on and he invites his friend Ron to look at his mind map and add some ideas of his own. And Ron's pretty excited because he feels like this could be a really great story if they put their 2 ideas, or their separate ideas combined together. So he looks at his world, Other Earth, and he decides, it's lacking a lot of detail. So a lot of adventure stories have small woods and forests. So he adds a bunch of woods and a bunch of forests, and he decides that the villages need to be, have some variety in size. So he adds some big castles and some small ones, and keeps some of the small villages and towns on the outside. And then he looks at his character types and he says, I know a good idea, orcs. Those things are big and ugly. So we'll make him have some brutish armor, and he's wielding an axe. And just to increase on the gruesome part of him, we'll add some blood and some other grisly stuff dripping from his mouth, because that'll really show how ugly he is. And then he looked at his main character, and he realized that what Jimmy was trying to do was model himself. Well, he figured that Jimmy wouldn't really be carrying around a sword. It'd probably be a mace. And even if he was carrying around a sword, it wouldn't look like that one. It'd look a little different. And he also decided that a beard and short hair were way more befitting than a ponytail for a hero. And then just decided on this, what's better than a dragon fighting another dude? A two-headed dragon. That's it. There's nothing better. Two-headed dragon. And, what could get better than that? So he added the two-headed dragon, and he thought that was the final detail that needed to be applied there. So Jimmy and Ron, finished their kind of putting their ideas together, and they were all happy. So as you can see, the Storyfellow site allows the writers to come together and add these details in the first stage of writing, which shortens the amount of time that it takes to do that pre-writing. So not only does this try to solve the problem of the novice writer, William, it also caters to the idea of the Storyfellow site when it was first created, which was to shorten the amount of time it takes to get from work all the way through completed. And so that's what William tries to do, is solve both of those problems. And so for the moral of the story, William was created to further the Storyfellow site by going with that extra step and adding the pre-writing into it and just making it one place where you can do everything.